Alright, so we've got our Civil War first-person shooter game here. Let's talk about what the objectives are going to be. First off, being a first-person shooter, obviously the first objective is to shoot people. What would a shooting game be without being able to shoot people? But besides that, what's going to get people coming back to play it over again? What's going to keep people interested in the game? So besides shooting people, we're going to have some other objectives that the player has to complete. Obviously, the primary objective, being a Civil War game, is that you want your side to win. Now, a lot of people have spoken before about what if the South had won? Well, now's their chance to try it out and make it happen. Besides helping your side win, each level is going to have specific missions that can range anywhere from assassinating an enemy officer to sabotaging cannons to delivering supplies to soldiers on the front line. These objectives will vary depending on the level, and they'll be randomly spaced throughout the game. So the first experience that a player has on one map may be completely different the second time or third time that they run through it. Lastly, as with any other first-person shooter, of course the other last objective is not to get killed. Obviously the big challenge is going to be playing it on a massively bloody war and keeping yourself alive. So between all these different objectives, the player will be constantly entertained and will continually come back to play this game for hours and hours. Now, as far as the rules go, the rules are pretty straightforward. It's a shooting game. There will be multiplayer capability, and along with that, there will be different settings that the player can choose for what kind of game they want to play with other people over the internet. There will be free-for-all games, capture the flag games, typical deathmatch, team deathmatch games. All those have pretty much set and standard rules to go along with each style of game for multiplayer play. So the game will be multiplayer capable, and along with that there will be a number of options that the player can choose. As far as the limits the game has, really the biggest limit is physics. The common rules of physics apply to this game. We want it to be realistic. We're not going to have any mutants flying around shooting laser beams at 1800 Civil War soldiers. That, to me, just wouldn't be a very good game to play. The whole concept of this game, it really resides on the fact that nobody has ever produced a game like this that's a first-person shooter that's based back in history during the Civil War. It's a completely different genre as compared to the modern games with grenade launchers, rocket launchers, all sorts of different things, helicopters. In this game, really physics is going to rule what can happen within the game. And also, of course, the materials and weapons that they had back then. You're not going to be firing off 600 rounds a minute in a muzzle-loading gun. You know, it's definitely going to be something that's a little bit different than the average game player is used to playing. But I think that's also what will keep people attracted to it. When it comes to some of the limits as far as the multiplayer capability, we are going to limit it to 32 players in a multiplayer game. Other first-person shooter games out there have attempted things with higher amounts of players in a single game, and it just leads to too much lag and too much stuttering and just not a very quality experience for the player. Not everybody has the money to spend on a multi-thousand-dollar computer rig to play with 60-some people at a time. So we feel that 32 players is an excellent amount of enough people to shoot, not so little that you're running around searching for somebody all day before you find someone, but not so many that your computer is completely slowed down and you're not able to even see anything before you die. So with those limits in mind, we'll definitely be developing this to run smoothly with 32 players as a maximum in the multiplayer game, and really just following the rules of physics and the style of weaponry and materials that they had back then. Alright, to create a video game like this that we've been discussing, obviously we need some tools and resources to get things going and get the game created. Obviously at the bare minimum, we're going to need money. We've got to pay people to make it, and we need that money from somewhere. So first thing we'll need to do is really develop a relationship with large video game producing companies such as EA Games or Blizzard Entertainment. And definitely some big names out there that could help fund this project and bring it to fruition. Once we have the funding, we'll definitely need to start off with the basic tool that any video game creator is going to need, which is computers. We've got to have computers to type in the code and at the bare minimum get everything programmed to make this game work. Once we have the computers, we've got to get people behind those computers to actually get them going and get the game created. So we're going to need some computer programmers, some people who are used to programming for video games specifically, so most likely people that are experienced in C++ programming, object-oriented programming, things like that. Along with the programmers, we'll also need some people to bring this whole idea of a Civil War first-person shooter to life. And it's great if you can make the game work, but bringing in some graphic designers that really can incorporate our ideas into very vivid landscapes and vivid action sequences and vivid materials that are realistic to the time period. Definitely some graphic designers that are used to utilizing 3D rendering software and things like that will be integral to this project to make it a completely engrossing finished product. Besides having programmers and graphic designers, we'll also need to have some writers to create a solid storyline. Any video game can put together some shooting and action sequences and call itself a game, but the games that actually have a solid, believable story behind it that really captures the player's imagination and truly engrosses them into the world of the video game really takes that video game to a higher level. So besides the programmers and graphic designers, we'll need a solid team of writers to develop stories for the game to keep it moving along and keep it interesting besides just going around and shooting things. Once we have those three groups together, the programmers, the graphic designers, and the writers, we can really bring the whole game together. Once we have the entire game together, we've got to tap into the business side of things, and we'll need a marketing team to really help us market our game to everyone out there in the world. There are so many different avenues of marketing now that we really need somebody who's experienced with that area to really help us take advantage of all the different aspects of marketing that are available to us now. Possibly booking convention times for video game conventions, utilizing the regular old advertising on TV, using social media campaigns. All of these things together really need somebody who's experienced with tying them and coordinating them all together as well. So, to recap, we'll definitely need, obviously, the money to pay everybody. We'll need computers to make it happen. We'll need people to run the computers and design the game and write what's going to happen in the game. And at the end of the day, we'll also need people to help us sell the game. All those things combined together will really help us make this a successful venture. Thank you.